Alright, let's just get on with it, shall we? So I read this today. Let's see what it says, shall we? Let's go. I do what I do. I just check out my... So I'm just going to show the audience what I look at. Alright, and so let me hit record. Start recording. Okay. So, as some of you might realize, or anybody that's paying attention, probably not too many, but I pay a lot of attention to cryptocurrency, BitCON in particular. That's like the mother of all crypto, the one which all the rest kind of follow. And if you know anything about the history of crypto, it's pretty shady. I mean, it's shadier than my highly reflective shades I'm wearing right now. So yeah, I mean, it's nobody knows who the original inventor of Bitcoin is. He goes by an alias, Satoshi Nakamoto. And so, but one of the co-founders, I can't remember his name right now, it's not popping in my head, but he acknowledged early on in the development of Bitcoin, they walked into the CIA and gave him a presentation about this is how it works, right? Because you gotta, you can't just go developing your own currency in this country. And so from the early years of Bitcoin, the CIA was involved. That should tell you something. And the more I researched it, I'm still looking at the same page, I know. The more I researched it, though, yeah. I spent a lot of time and energy, mental energy. I think this is a big reason I got so many gray hairs. Riding that first bubble of Bitcoin in 2018. And so follow me with this train of thought, because these dots do connect, and they do in a meaningful way, I believe. So, where's he at? Lynn Forrester, Evelyn Robert, Adrian the Rothschild. Okay, so this lady, Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, married in with the very wealthy, I think he's the head of the French branch of the Rothschild dynasty, family, empire, whatever. And so she's very wealthy. She's, well, this is what YouTube, or same thing, Google says about her wealth. It's estimated 673 million to her name. That's her. Right now, the way the Rothschilds operate is they, for years, they kept their wealth within the family, so they all married their cousins, like true, royalty does. They all inbreed, and what comes with inbreeding is degeneration. So yeah, they're all psychopaths. But so this lady recently caught a interview, several, with this lady. Her, 673 to her name, but she's married to Evelyn, which is a guy. I don't know why he's called Evelyn, but Robert, I guess he makes up for it, his middle name or something. Adrian de Rothschild, which is quite a bit wealthier if you look at him and his net worth, because he is British financier. Okay, so he's on the British side, which is the main branch of the Rothschild family dynasty, the British. I thought I looked up, but he's the chairman from right here, 1972 to 1989. Chairman of The Economist magazine, which is the connection I'm drawing to Bitcoin, because, in fact, let me look this up for you right after I look up his net worth. This is really easy. I'm doing what I normally do for the viewing audience. And so 20 billion estimated. British financier, estimated net worth 20 billion. That's just him. The family is one of the wealthiest families on the planet. And in part, from my research, is because they were the bankers of the Vatican. They, you can look up the Rothschild. Here we go. I'll do it real quick for you. Rothschild Vatican connection pops right up. It's probably because I looked for it before. But right here, Rothschild loans to the Holy See. Right on Wiki, right there, it just tells you. Look at this guy, Pope Gregory. Need a drink. So, 1832, after the Napoleonic Wars, which is key because it was Napoleon who stripped the Vatican of its political. It was a church state, and Napoleon came in and dethroned the Pope, basically. Right, and so it looked like the beast received a deadly wound in the book of Revelation. But it appeared as if. Now, these elites, these rulers, have learned over time to rule by secrecy, because you know what happened in the French Revolution. Marie Antoinette off with her head. So now they rule, and they've been doing this. The Roman Empire has used puppet states and puppet leaders. You know, like in Africa, it's many parts are ran by Western interests, but they have a dark-skinned black man running the show because people relate to what they know, people that look like them. And so that's how they do things. That's how the Roman Empire for thousands of years has done things. Anyway, that's just the Rothschild loans to the Holy See. Bankers of the Vatican, one reason why they became so wealthy, as we'll see, because the Vatican Bank, according to this Forbes article, is the most secret bank in the world. Why is that, do you think? And how can they get away with that? Because they have their own country. The Vatican City, make sure I'm in focus, the Vatican City is a tiny little country. The little horn power in Daniel. Yeah, it's its own little enterprise there, and it's beyond the legislative bounds of the EU apparently, because there's several Institute of Works of Religion. That's the Vatican BS. Anyway, remember the whole VatiLeaks thing, and all the corruption that came out, and so these regulatory committees within the EU, Moneyval, as you can see here, the scandal, internal documents embarrassed the Vatican. Yeah, oops. Cast a cloud over its efforts to demonstrate financial transparency, because it isn't. It's masquerading as a religious institution. One of the things they invested was get this ad off my screen. Peter's Pence, I think it's called. The donations from the Worldwide Catholic Church, which is huge. Which go directly to the Pope, which is supposed to be for, helping the poor and good stuff like that, right? But they were caught, with money laundering charges, because they're buying up wealthy assets and real estate. I mean, the Vatican for hundreds of years has been into real estate because, for one, she sits a queen. She, according to her own documents, her own papal bulls, whatever BS that they come up with, just iconography, is that the right word? Images in the church, iconography, that's what it's called. It pictures herself and sees herself as the queen of the world. And I think I'm still recording. So, meaning of the word, this is just how I research. I mean, I just want to share the process. All embracing, no, that's not. Okay, Catholic comes from the Greek phrase meaning on the whole, according to the whole, or in general, and a combination of the Greek words meaning about and meaning whole. The first use of Catholic was by the Church Father Saint Ignatius of Antioch, the letter of Okay. So, the whole earth is what it's getting at. Okay, sometimes it takes a little reading to get to the big picture. Universal Church. Okay, the Catholic term, Catholic Church, literally meaning the universal church. Ignatius of Antioch contributed to the earliest Christianity. Okay. It believes she sits a queen and will see no sorrow, it says in Revelation. She's no widow. She is not worried about the second coming. She's not worried about the Messiah. She's worried about her dominion over the earth. Pontifex Maximus. So that's where her interest lies, is on seizing as much power over the earth as she can, as an institution. I'm not talking about the faithful, the followers of this religion, but they might want to research their own, what they're giving money to. I mean, so my point there was there's a lot of talk about the globalist and this push for a new world order. Well, this institution has been pushing for it for thousands of years. They believe they're the rightful heirs of the world. And so all that in context, now that we know all that, right? Is my computer going to work? Uh-oh. Okay. Let me stop this and restart. Okay. Let's go again. This article from the National Post. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of scrolling. Wealth of the Roman Catholic Church, impossible to calculate. So this organization is so secretive that, and because it's its own country, and it's beyond, auditing because it keeps everything within itself, it's beyond the legislative powers of the EU and other legislative bodies. Nobody really knows, but there's no doubt, however, that between the church's priceless art, land, which is huge because land is a huge investment, and people for hundreds and hundreds of years have been, putting in their wills as good Catholics, donate to the church. Donate all your possessions. Donate all your wealth. What a greater cause than to donate your life's work to the church, right? The chosen church, according to their belief system. And then they bought up prime real estate all around the earth. So land, gold, and investments across the globe. It is, undoubtedly one of the wealthiest institutions on earth, but they still don't know how wealthy, because it's so secretive, this institution, and it's not about to just tell everybody. And so it has recently been, that goes through all the amount of land owned, billions of dollars in investments, millions of dollars, and that's the Peters Pence thing, which is like a tithe to the Pope, which they were caught doing all that previous investigation for investing in like prime real estate. Oops, not really helping the poor or doing what Christ would have done with it, right? You're just investing in this earth like all the rest of, secular society. So, 22 million in 1 metric ton of gold. That's there's this saying, the golden rule, he who owns the gold makes the rules. Well, this institution, and it says it right at the bottom here, since 313 AD, when Catholicism became the official religion of the Roman Empire, its power has been in near constant growth. This is not like a conspiracy website. This is not, whatever, Joe Schmo. This is the National Post admitting this. This institution, we talk about the richest men on the earth, like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. They're newcomers. This institution has been around since 313 AD, building and amassing its wealth. That's huge. So, and there's different side topics, like during the connection of the Hitler's Pope. That's a book. The connection of the Vatican, how it was set up to be the religion of the Third Reich or whatever, and all the Jew gold that was smuggled on the trains to the Vatican. It has been hoarding relics, precious. Like, you can ask, the richest man on the earth, whatever price you want for some of these relics within these cathedrals, within these churches. So immeasurable wealth, right? It's paid out $2 billion in just the U.S. alone for sex abuse allegations. $31 million seized from the Vatican Bank during its investigation in money laundering. So it's just an upstanding institution, right? $308 million in revenue. That's 2011. What I'm getting at here is, following the video, it's pretty revealing, I think, and they are just showing. There's more on that. Money laundering. Watchdog starts an inspection into the Vatican. It's from October 2nd, 2020, so that's pretty recently. I mean, they're still being investigated. One of Italy's top anti-mafia prosecutors to tackle alleged financial wrongdoing of the Holy See. And so they have to at least put on the show like they're trying to hold everybody to the same standards when, we know a little better. An institution that's been around for that long we talked about the Rothschilds and their family wealth. On the world stage, they're still newcomers. The Vatican, I believe, the longest lasting man-made institution on this earth. One might also argue that it's probably got the most blood from all the martyrs. Millions of people killed during the Dark Ages for simply trying to stay true to their faith. So when we listen to this, that these top banksters, financiers, are joining forces with the Vatican, which is nothing new with these people. The Rothschilds, as we've seen, go back centuries. Their connections with the Vatican and the Holy See. So they all share the same agenda. They're all globalists. They're all elitists. They're all uber wealthy. This is a totally unrelated article. You can see all my thumbnails. This is how my mind operates. Like, I get 50 different ideas, neuro-linguistic programming, stuff like that. And then it's just a matter of like putting them all together. That's the hard part, into a presentable package. The Pope on Christmas calls COVID vaccines the light of hope on Christmas, and urges, of course, access to the poor, because we're so concerned with the poor. Got to get those black people in Africa injected. So, like my question was, does he not believe in in miracles anymore? Doesn't he believe in the great healer, the creator God? So there's a global agenda behind the vaccine push. That's the other angle. But I want you to watch this video from Mrs. Rothschild and the Pope, and these business leaders joining forces openly for a Council for Inclusive Capitalism. Inclusive. These are the most wealthy individuals, families on the planet who have for ages stripped people of their wealth. For instance, the Jewish bankers, the Rothschilds, hobnobbing with the princes and the Vatican, from what I read, because back in the day, interestingly enough, Christians weren't supposed to partake in usury, right? Like Muslims today. So they had what do they call it? A council or a, basically a token Jew. I know it's going to sound bad, but that's what a court Jew, I think is what they called it. So, because Jews were the bankers, they could get away with usury, which is weird because, according to the Jewish faith, I guess it is acceptable, but there's still that 7-year forgiveness period. Anyway, so I guess that's how they the mindset back then, the dark age mindset. It's hilarious sometimes just to put it in a contemporary context. So the Jews were Old Testament and usury was acceptable, and then the Christians differed somehow, and it wasn't kosher to be a banking Christian, so you had to have a court Jew to do the banking for you. Anyway, I crack me up. But history cracks me up. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's like... So, Mrs. Rothschild here, and this guy. The Council for Inclusive Capitalism launches a partnership with the Vatican. Isn't that nice? And they all want the same thing, don't they? Openly, the Pope has been anti-capitalism. The Pope, according to their own encyclicals, according to their own pontifications, they say that they cannot be in error because they are God on earth. So everything they say is truth. So do you think the Pope just all of a sudden had a change of heart and decided to okay, we'll make a compromise. As long as we call it inclusive capitalism, we're all good now. I just on a fake book. This was funny. This was pretty funny. Yeah, this is a quote from the Pope on that article that I just showed you. This is a quote. "We cannot allow closed nationalisms." He's for open borders. He's for a one world order. He's for globalism, because she is the queen that sits on the earth. That is her dominion, the rightful heir, queen of the earth, ruler of the earth, Pontifex Maximus. Let me start again. "We cannot allow closed nationalisms to prevent us from living as the true human family that we are." He's all about the family. That's key. You'll hear more and more about the family during this whole COVID thing. I think it's been interesting. Some of the messaging on the media about, oh, this is so great, all of a sudden the family's getting together. Yeah, look for the exploiting of the family angle. Neither can we allow the radical virus of individualism to overcome us and to render us indifferent to the suffering of our brothers and sisters, the Pope said. So, personally, I guess I consider myself a radical individualist. Because I believe in individual. That was what the whole Protestant Reformation was about. It was the right of the individual. Sola Scriptura, freedom of consciousness, freedom of the conscience. This is what Luther and all the other great Protestant reformers, after reading their Bibles, which were more and more becoming printed in the common tongue so people could actually read it and understand it, was no longer chained in the churches and encrypted in a mystery language of Latin, which nobody understood except for the priesthood. So people started reading their Bibles, and they realized salvation is a personal issue. It's something that we must, of our own free will, choose. And God doesn't force us to obey. He asks politely, in a loving way. He doesn't rejoice in the destruction of the wicked either. So the whole plan of salvation is about the individual. And, Jesus would have came to save one of us, if that's all that remained on the earth. Okay, so the whole Protestant Reformation was based upon the right of the individual to make the free will choice to understand God's word, which the papists called Protestants. They claim they had a paper pope because they believed sola scriptura, the Bible alone, for the source of truth, the written word of God. And so when they found more and more of the conflicts between the institution of the Romish Church and the Word of God, then they chose the Word of God. And more and more it was apparent to the Protestant reformers that this was actually completely against the teachings of Christ. And so one of those key points was the church, which they still believe today, according to the Pope, he calls a virus of individualism. They still believe today that the layman, the non-priest class, us, you and me, don't have the right to think for ourselves. The church thinks for us. We're not capable of making like a salvational choice. We're not intelligent enough. We're not elite enough. We're not ordained. We're not chosen. We're not, we don't have the elite bloodlines within us. We're not part of this, in my opinion, apostate, counterfeit priesthood. Well, in the New Testament, it talks about the priesthood of believers. Every one of us, male or female, doesn't have to be a male to be a priest. We're all supposed to be, in essence, priests, but we have one high priest who is in heaven. And we don't have a earthly priesthood anymore. That was done away with. Anyway, long story short, they believe in collectivism. And there's this big, massive push right now for a collectivist worldview, and we're all global citizens, and we need to get rid of our nations, our borders. We need to just be inviting of all refugees. Like the same thing that's happening in this country is happening in the EU, and the same accusations are being flung at countries that don't want to have open borders, and just anybody and everybody from these, like, terrorist recruitment centers, Syria, anywhere, flooding into their country that they can't assimilate with the culture. They have a completely different culture. So the same accusations of racism have been tossed at these different countries in the EU. So it's not just an American thing, even though we're in the little media bubble of this is America and, this is the world, basically. And we're a bunch of racist pigs because of our history. No, the same tactics are being used worldwide to push for open borders and globalism, and ultimately one world order. So let me stop this recording. Okay, I think it already stopped. So I'm going to go to Pope Benedict. I guess I can start recording. Calls for UN with teeth. Pope Benedict, previous pope. Anybody's paying attention. The one that is kind of resigned mysteriously because, it wasn't looking good for Pope Benedict. All the child abuse stuff. And the scandal in the Vatican Bank. So, let's see. See where this little rabbit trail leads us. So in July 7th, 2009, Pope calls for a UN with teeth. UN with teeth. What does that mean? Sounds kind of nasty. Painful. This is Pope Benedict. This was over 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Right? The Pope has called for reform of the United Nations and financial bodies, giving them real teeth, needed to tackle economic and social injustice. That's key. Social justice related to the globe, the world, and they always tie it in with climate. And, this is the global family, and the earth is our home. Yeah, simple lines of propaganda to push for what they've always wanted. They've always wanted world dominion. Since their inception, 300 AD. Second. Alright, I'm back. So we have all these elitists, like, for instance, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. Calling for, what does he call it? Shareholder capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism. The Davos Manifesto. So here's just one from Time magazine, which may or may not let me look at it. Here he is. Looks like somebody you could trust, doesn't he? Like he's got your best interest in mind. So they're all claiming that they don't want to deal away with capitalism, while at the same time, capitalism obviously has failed us, and we need to replace it with something new, right? And so he uses the whole COVID angle, which is convenient. And from the start, people have been calling it out that it's bigger than a virus. Look at the who benefits, right? Cui bono, Q bono. Is that how you pronounce it? Who benefits? Don't look at the virus. I'm not even disputing it, right? Some people are saying there is no virus. Some people are saying it's 5G. I don't know, whatever. I don't care what the causal Is that how you say it? The cause is. What is the result? Who benefits? That's what you always must ask yourself. Yeah, they use all the tragedy and all the unfairness and blame all the financial disparity and suicides and wrecking of the local economies on a virus with a 99.8% survival rate. According to Klaus Schwab, those who follow the path of stakeholder capitalism will soon find that it leads to more inclusive and sustainable economy for all. So it's always about this like sustainability thing with these people. And if we watch this interview, which I have already downloaded, with admittedly one of the most wealthy women in the UK, who alone is worth $500 million, and her husband worth, was it $20 billion? Listen as she lectures us all on the shortcomings of capitalism. And his Holy Father, as she calls him, who's being investigated and for money laundering and other, even aiding terrorism, I think, was one of the accusations of the most secretive bank in the world, it's been called. And they're lecturing us about how corrupt capitalism is and how it's failed us all and how unjust it is. Okay, so I'll play it now.
This morning, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism announcing a new partnership between the Pope, the Vatican, and business leaders across the globe. It follows a meeting just over a year ago in which the Pope Francis called for the urgent need for an economic system that is fair, trustworthy, and capable of addressing the most profound challenges facing humanity. Executives are now committing to the Council's pledge to create a more sustainable and equitable system. They include Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, Johnson & Johnson CEO Alex Gorsky, CalPERS CEO Marcy Frost, and Merck CEO Ken Frazier. And joining us right now is the founder of that council, Lynn Forster de Rothschild. Lynn, good morning to you. You are the brainchild of this idea, and I'm curious if you could even just tell us how you convinced the Vatican and the Pope to embrace capitalism. I went back and I've looked at some of the encyclicals, as you know. 5 years ago, the Pope said that capitalism was the dung of the devil. What did you do to get the Vatican on board?
Well, the Vatican has asked for concrete actions to benefit all people. And in his encyclical in 2020, the Fratelli Tutti, he talked about reconciling the world of finance and the world of work. And that is what we are doing. Pope Francis doesn't point an accusatory finger at wealth creation and capitalism, but what he wants is for the creation of wealth to aid and not destroy the planet and the people on it. So we are responding to his call to reform capitalism, to make it inclusive, to make it sustainable, to make it trusted as well as dynamic.
So, there are people who will invariably be skeptical of, and there are skeptics of the ESG movement. I would argue this is another step in the direction of the ESG movement. But what does this partnership look like, and what do these pledges by companies look like?
So that's a great question, Andrew, and we understand the skepticism, and we are not another group of people who meet once and are done. We have 230 specific commitments that our guardians have made to inclusive capitalism that are on our website today at inclusivecapitalism.com. But more importantly than what our 23 guardians are committing to is the fact that we are asking all businesses, large and small, to go to the website, agree to our principles, and then make their own commitments. We're not prescriptive in terms of what is inclusive capitalism, but what we do believe is that it's important, if we're going to have true system change, for everyone to do what they can, to think about what the Holy Father said in the Laudato Si in 2015 when he asked us to listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. That's not a religious imperative, that's a moral imperative.
So, so here's a philosophical question for you.
Okay.
The philosophical question is, in the world of business and in the world of capitalism, there are going to be times, for example, where your company might be struggling and you might have to debate whether you are going to lay off workers or not pay out a dividend, for example. There are going to be times where there's going to be questions about whether you should have a philanthropic arm or you shouldn't. Is this supposed to be philanthropy? How should business leaders think about this?
No, this is not philanthropy at all. What it is it's business putting profit in service of people and planet, but not taking away profit. There is no indication from the Holy Father that there should not be wealth creation. And in fact, in the document called Journeying Toward Our Common Home, it specifically talks about wealth creation that helps the planet, helps the world rather than hurts it. So of course there are balances, and that's why we have boards, and that's why we have managements, and that's why we want accountability. In the council, we have asset owners and asset managers who are making commitments to hold companies to account, not for a specific end goal of what they should do in the specific situation of their company, particularly if it's in any kind of distress, but how is the company responding to all of its stakeholders?
Yeah. So basically, what they're saying is they want to go back to another Dark Ages, where the religion is tied in with the finances and politics of, well, the world economy and the dictating the political policies around the world in this grand little collective, one big happy family, right? And if you have a family, you got to have a father, right? Who's the father? Oh, the Holy Father. Oh, okay. And then do the little kids, the little Timmy and Julie, whatever, do they have as much say on, say, family spending as the father? No, not exactly. Now, you might get a little allowance now and then, True socialism. Universal income. So they don't have anything against profits and, worldly prosperity, evidently, if you look into their finances and how much wealth that institution actually clings onto. Like a lot of people made the comment, since this Pope is just so enamored and concerned with the poor and the plight of the poor, what about all those holy relics that they're hoarding over centuries and centuries? Why not sell off a few and help the poor? No, they don't really like them that much. We'll give them a couple breadcrumbs now and then. Make ourselves look better, just like the Pharisees in Jesus' day. So, man, the Great Reset, right here. The Great Reset. This is a common talking point. This is on Time Magazine. The Great Reset. Let's see what Time Magazine says. The COVID-19 pandemic has provided a unique opportunity to think about the kind of future we want. This is we. This is the collective. This is globalism. Time partnered with the World Economic Forum to ask leading thinkers to share ideas for how to transform the way we live and work. Yes, please transform our lives, benevolent rulers. And so these are our saviors, these elites, these people who have hoarded fortunes for themselves, who have clawed and scratched and, killed and maimed and slaughtered their way up to the top of the dung pile, which is, all the top political offices and royalty, whatever. The super wealthy. These are the people who are going to take care of us, little guys, okay? All of us. Useless feeders in the bottom that they openly admit they want to get rid of, like Bill Gates. We got to cull the herd, and, there's too many people on the earth, and we're polluting the earth and destroying the earth. So he is really super concerned about getting us all vaccinated because of our health. So these are our saviors. And meanwhile, this global push for a new economic order, let me go back, Pope Benedict back in 2009 called for in his Charitas in Veritate, or Charity and Truth. I mean, it's like the Patriot Act. They always make it sound so great, right? You got to be like living in Disney World to believe these little slogans they come up with to push their diabolical, demon-inspired agendas on us unsuspecting sheep, evidently. So there's a strongly felt need for a reform of the United Nations, and likewise of the economic institutions and international finance, so that the concept of the family of nations can acquire real teeth. There's an urgent need for a true world political authority. Who do you think that would be? Political authority of the world. I think that would be the Pope, maybe. So, strengthen international body should work to bring about integral and timely disarmament, food security, and peace. To guarantee the protection of the environment, that's always the environment, and regulate migration. So then he goes on to lecture us about profiting. This comes from a guy who just sits back and gets tithe to the tune of tens of millions, completely tax-free to do whatever he wants with. So there's no doubt that he doesn't want any competition, which is capitalism. And you can just sit back and, fill up your little storehouses full of, all these well-intentioned followers of the faith. So he warned that globalization, properly managed, could open up the unprecedented possibility of large-scale redistribution of wealth on a worldwide scale. Or directed badly could, increase poverty and inequality, trigger a global crisis. We're all about crises. And it talks about how he met with, the beloved Barack Obama and all that. But he actually, at one point, I can't see it in this article, there's a strong felt need for reform. Yeah, we already read that. Anyway, he calls for a one world financial system led by some kind of a moral authority, which, obviously is the Pope. So now we have this business alliance being formed with the Vatican. Like, why is it the Vatican? Why isn't it like the next largest church, like the Jehovah Witnesses or something? Why does it have to be the Vatican? Because in Revelations it describes her as the mother of harlots, and she is in bed with the merchants of the earth in Revelations 18. And she gives them their power. Yeah, all the merchants were the powerful men of the earth. But behind the curtain, there's that religious power that has been around for thousands of years, amassing her wealth and influence, educating the Jesuit colleges. Trump went to a Jesuit college. I mean, look into how many world leaders were taught at Jesuit colleges. In any case, and so now we have this, because I keep track of crypto, BlackRock. Fink. So this is the head of the world's largest asset manager. The head of the world's largest asset manager has provided a somewhat bullish take on the world's first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Remember the CIA front, the Economist magazine. Okay, back to the original Rothschild. Evelyn, Mr. Evelyn. Economist magazine predicts Bitcoin. Yes, that's a mechanical keyboard if you're curious. Gotta keep it all old school, So I'll just go to the image of the cover. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have picked up on it now, but it's 1988. So this Evelyn guy was the chairman of The Economist magazine during this time frame. We just read in Wikipedia. Getting ahead of myself. So this was the cover January 9th, 1988. Okay? Let's just look at this. Get ready for a world currency. If we look real close at that little, for one thing, look at the imagery. I'll give you time. So it's a phoenix. in a classical occult interpretation, the phoenix rising from the ashes. The things burning happen to be fiat currency, paper, money, of all the different denominations of the world. So, and it's even got a little fleur-de-lis on its head. That's pretty interesting because, and I never drew that connection, but the coronavirus, which I realized it didn't start in 2018, but it's the crown virus. Another symbol of the papacy is the triple crown, which ties back to Babylon and all that. But the fleur-de-lis is a Catholic symbol, French Catholic. Anyway, you can look into it. It has other meanings that are a little unsavory, but so this phoenix rising from the ashes, get ready for a world currency, literally has a gold coin around its neck. The common iconography, symbology of the Bitcoin is a coin, and it's always like, I always thought it was funny because it's just digits in a computer, but the way they represent it in a form that conveys value is an actual gold coin, which is true value, gold. It takes work to mine it and pull it out of the earth, but so they always depict Bitcoin, which is a complete fraud in my mind. But it's a high-performing asset now. It's the 11th largest asset in the world. It's now approaching 30,000. By the time people hear this, it could be up to who knows what, right? Because they're just pumping it up. Why? Why are all the financial institutions around the world, Visa, MasterCard, all the big money guys, why are they all backing it now? It used to be, for the small guys, it used to be a grassroots thing, anti-establishment. Not anymore. So, makes you wonder, if it's truly an anti-establishment tool or technology, why is the whole financial world, including all the big banks, getting behind it? Because it's part of the agenda. And so it literally has on this coin 10, and then I looked this up at one point. The the little O or 0 with a slash diagonally through it literally means in encoding, in cryptology, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of cryptology. And 2018, the date, is when Bitcoin gained prominence in the minds of everybody. I mean, that was the first wave, the first bubble, which I fortunately or unfortunately got involved in and wrote it up and also wrote it down. That was no fun, but yeah, borderline mental breakdown. But I learned a lot from the whole exercise. So what does this mean? Well, it's interesting because the way crypto is designed, is to suck the fiat currencies into itself like a vacuum or a black hole, and by doing so, itself deflates, which sounds bad, but that's actually a good thing because it gains in value as more and more fiat is dumped into it, which in return devalues fiat, because this thing, which everybody's pouring their money into, is way beyond the value of the dollar. The dollar depreciates over time, like you've heard it since the founding of the Federal Reserve. I think it was like, what is it, equivalent of the dollar today is the equivalent of like 18 cents or something like that. I might have to look that back up. but it's depreciated that much, right? So this, ingeniously, the technology, it's designed pretty ingeniously for how simple it is. It's just a ledger, a public ledger. That's, people have already been. That's why early on I was just perplexed. Why are libertarians all for this? And thinking back now, it's kind of interesting because those were one of the biggest stumbling blocks. Because libertarians in general are more like gold standard people. So I'm like, why are libertarians all for this? I heard about Bitcoin like in 2008 when it was like a couple dollars for Bitcoin. And of course, I'm bitter because I could be a complete retired millionaire right now. But I never looked into it, and back then there was never enough places to buy it. So I'm not going to trust like some random shady website to throw my money at. There was no big trading companies. Mt. Gox was one that went under, was corrupt. But so this thing is designed to hyperinflate the fiat currencies of the world, while it itself deflates or gains in value. Pretty ingenious. And as we can see from this here, the phoenix rising from the ashes or flames of things burning there. It's literally carved into the stone of St. Paul's Cathedral. So I don't know if you can get, much more. All roads lead to Rome, get more Catholic than this. But, the coat of arms, the flags, this is just a sampling of all the different fleur-de-lis, which, some of the, that one's special. Looks like a little Swazi. Some of the, ancient Babylonian Mesopotamia carvings you'll find, ancient Egypt, you'll find some little references to the fleur-de-lis. Fleur-de-lis, this is from Britannica, okay? This is from Britannica. What did I do there? Okay. Yeah, it goes back to when Pope Leo III in 800 crowned Charlemagne as emperor, reported to have presented him with a blue banner covered with golden fleur-de-lis. So they try to say it's I don't know, how they so one description was Eve, when she cried, the fleur-de-lis popped up, and there's all this BS, like when they try to Christianize obvious pagan, ancient, like Babylonian symbolism. And that's usually where a lot of this stuff comes from. It all comes from Babylon. Mystery, Babylon, mother of harlots, right? So, in any case, it's a symbol of royalty, Catholic monarchy, Babylon, and it's a crown on the phoenix, which we just saw was engraven on a St. Paul's Cathedral. So, and it's, the phoenix rising from the ashes is also another ancient symbol. What is the messaging here? Do we think these ancient elitist families and dynasties and institutions like the Roman Church that have been pushing for a global empire for centuries, generation after generation. And Bible prophecy that points towards a one world order and eventually a mark that will dictate buying and selling based upon forced false religion. It says all the world is forced to worship the beast. So it ties around worship. It's not just financial. It's not just a microchip. It's not just the technology that matters to God. It's the God wants worship. God wants sincerity in his believers. And that's what this whole great controversy theme comes down to. Will God's people worship him in sincerity and truth? And the adversary, the devil, the serpent, the dragon of old, he doesn't care how he gets worship. He'll force people to bow down before the image. He'll force worship. And so the technologies, the whatever, cryptocurrency, digital ID, your phone, smartphone, the technology is just it's just the tool for implementing for, like in the article from the Economist magazine, it talks about how people will adopt the technology. This is from 1988. This is 30 years ago. To the day, 2018. So now we're up there 32 years. Is there a coincidence? 32, 33, 2021 maybe. Another Masonic number. In this magazine, if you actually read through the article, I won't take the time now, but they talk about way back then, people will adopt this new currency out of convenience. And isn't that like one of the driving arguments for cryptocurrency is you don't have to exchange currencies. You can go to any country on the globe and buy, sell, trade Bitcoin or, whatever it may be. Bitcoin is the mother, right? The big dog on the cryptocurrency spectrum. But so it's pretty fascinating. This whole, how everything is just kind of hitting us all at once right now. And I think that's how these global elite that have been pushing for global governance for ages. They want to hit us from as many angles, multi-prong attack as possible, to the point where we can't fight on every front. And it's just a matter of time till Bible prophecy is fulfilled. Just one more reason to believe the book and keep the faith. Stay strong. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's been fun. Fun journey. Signing out. This is Nightwatch N8. We'll see you later.